Okay, so we are live. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome, and thanks for joining us for another We-Solation episode. We're really excited to be here today and really excited to share this space with all of you. For anyone who is joining in after their third or fourth time, welcome back. For anyone joining for the first time.
Okay, so we are live. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
I'm going to turn that off. There we go. And thanks for joining. And anyone joining for the first time, I will give you a quick little description about what We-Solation is. We created this space as a place for all of us to get together, share some skills, have some fun during a time of isolation. And so we created We-Solation, and our team is joining us today. We have Erica, who just joined from Wisebird. Hi, Erica. We have Lynn and Tony from Plastic Free Toronto. Sophie wasn't able to join today, but we hope that she will join us again next time. And she says hello to all the viewers. And we are joined by Pedro, who I will give it over to him in a second to introduce himself. But before I do that, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge that the land that we are meeting on today here in Toronto is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And for me, when I think about the land that we are gathered on, I think about all of the people that have gathered on this land for thousands and thousands of years. And in doing some research this week, I came across a really fantastic website that I would really like to share with you. It's called Future Ancestors Services, Inc. And it is an Indigenous and Black-owned, youth-led professional service social enterprise that advances climate justice and equity through a lens of ancestral accountability. Really, really cool service and website. I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's www.futureancestors.ca. And they have a variety of teachings. You can hire a multitude of different incredible speakers for events, but they also have training on things like engaging with traditional knowledge, overcoming adversity, cultural appropriation, anti-racism in the energy sector, decolonial policy development. It's really fantastic. So I would recommend anyone who is looking to learn a little bit more to head onto their website. You can also check them out on Instagram and socials. They are Ancestors Future there. But just this idea of future ancestors and that we're all future ancestors, I think is so unique and so powerful. And it really puts into perspective our purpose here and for the work that we're all doing toward climate justice. There is no environmental justice without social justice. And so learning about our history, our shared history is really important. So I would head over to that website if you are interested. And then, of course, without further ado, I also want to hand it over to Pedro, who's joining us. Pedro, if you want to introduce yourself and give a little bit about what we are going to be talking about today.
Yep. Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Pedro. Hi. Yes, of course. I'm a psychotherapist and I'm a coach and a huge psychology nerd. Today I want to share with you one of the topics that I'm most passionate about, which is called emotional intelligence. It really fits into what's happening, what the world is living right now, because it is a skill that many of us don't know that we have. Most of us leverage by nature, but almost no one knows that we can actually grow it. And it applies every day of your life. So when we put the world in crisis, it's way more important to have it handy and to have it practiced. And that is what I want to share with you today. What it is, how it looks like, and how to put it in practice.
I am muted and talking, so there we go. Of course, it always happens. This is just a natural community space for us to gather. It is not perfect. And we just like to have fun and laugh at ourselves and enjoy. So what I'm going to do, if you wanted to share your screen, I know you had some stuff you
Yeah,
wanted
of
to
course.
share. So I'm going to set that up for you right now. And whenever you are ready, you're more than
Alrighty.
welcome to go right ahead.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Pedro.
Awesome. Awesome. If you want to ask anything during the presentation, like please do. And I love questions, so whatever it is that you wanna, please do. Alrighty. Let me know if you can see this properly.
Yep, we're good.
Good.
We are good, Pedro.
Awesome. Hi, Erika. Got it. Okay. So what we're gonna what I'm gonna try to cover today is what this is, what emotional intelligence is, how it applies to our lives and your personal and professional life. What are some effects that are common today in the current, I hate this pandemic climate term, but it is what it is, and some tools to find clarity and get unstuck and move in a positive fashion, right? So I'm just going to get started. What do you think? I mean, I know that you can see the definition of what it is in front of you now, but when you hear emotional intelligence, what do you hear? Right? Just take a second and think about what do you hear.
I want to share something. Can I share something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm gonna be spontaneous. My husband was telling me that his understanding of emotional intelligence was being able to read emotions. But
Okay.
now I know that emotional intelligence is more about you recognizing your emotions and how to deal with them, not to react, but more understand your emotions. And I think for me now today, it's actually meaning recognize your own emotions, but also empathize, be empathetic with the others' emotions.
Definitely.
And, yeah.
Definitely. Part of the quality of emotional intelligence is that it interlinks with social intelligence. There's no one without the other, because part of it, the basic part of emotional intelligence is it starts with you, because if you cannot acknowledge and recognize your own, then it is very hard to do the same thing with others, right? But in reality, it takes both. It is the ability to, as you said, to understand your own emotions, and not only being able to understand them and acknowledge them as they are happening, but being able to respond to them willingly. The same thing with the others, by being able to identify, and it doesn't mean read and analyze the other's emotions, just like sense what's happening and responding willingly. So there are two key things to this ability that I'm going to dive more into, is acknowledge or awareness, and self-management or response. So do I know what's happening as it's happening? And if I do I respond in the way that I want to? Do I respond in the way that is better for my life? If you do, then fantastic. If you don't, as we a lot of times don't, then there are a lot of things that we can do, right? So I'm going to show you more or less how this looks in everyday life, because it sounds very complicated. And in contrast from the IQ, the intellectual coefficient, which is what many people confuse emotional intelligence with, emotional intelligence is not set. You don't have a set amount of it. You can grow it, and it's a practice thing. But you can identify it in your everyday life. So there are some examples on your screen, and you can see if any of them resonates with you and see how you respond to it. So we all know that currently families are quarantined. So parents and kids interacting 24/7, that doesn't always look pretty. How, like, if you're a parent and your kids are just running amok, how do you respond? Do you notice what's happening within you as your kids are running and screaming and shouting and yelling and crying? Do you respond accordingly? Or do you react and notice that you did what you did after you did it? That same thing applies to everything else, right? Am I having financial pressure? Do I respond in a certain way because I'm feeling like this? And then I regret it? Or can I take a minute and say, hey, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling frustrated. This response better supports where I want to go. And you can translate this into any scenario, right? I really like to watch the cashiers at the market because they are super exposed to everyone, and people are in, some of them with the best disposition, but some of them are in a very bad mood, and these people are exposed, risking their health in service. How is that affecting them, right? Is it triggering them? Are they safe? Do they respond? Are they aware how they respond or not? And this whole thing is leveraged by your emotional intelligence, right? I'm going to show you an image that will bring this whole conversation to a more clear point. Because when you imagine your emotions, there are, and this is a matrix that I did not develop. This is a matrix developed by the Yale University and the Center for Emotional Intelligence. And it's fantastic because it really, really lands the two variables that determine the quality of the emotion that you're having. Is it a high or a low energy emotion? Is it pleasant or unpleasant? And the mix of those two variables give you all the range of emotions. So think about it like this. If it's a high energy emotion, but it's unpleasant, then you land in the red bucket. And we know those feelings as frightened or anxious or infuriated or panicked. It's a high energy sensation, but it doesn't feel nice. But if it felt nice, with that amount of energy, you would call it happy, or you would call it excited or fun, and then you land in the yellow bucket. But if you dial down the energy in a non-pleasant way, we call it depression or hopeless. But if you are in a low energy mood, but it feels nice, then you're serene and you're relaxed and you're just chilling, right? So it's really a matter of how these two things come into play. I love this image because regardless of how you're feeling, one of the things that us as human beings struggle with emotional intelligence is that many times we don't know the words to our emotions. And kids struggle with this a lot. They just feel something. They don't know what it's called, that it has a name and a purpose. So being able to name what we feel is a humongous step number one. Being able to land, to pinpoint which bucket our emotions land in is a great step number two, because it doesn't matter what we're feeling, when you're feeling it, or why you're feeling it. You can always define, do I feel highly energized, and does it feel nice or not? So this covers 90% of what's important in this topic, which is being able to be aware of what's happening as it happens, right? So what happens when we translate this into a pandemic, and well, those were poorly used air quotes, into a pandemic and a crisis, a crisis mood? Most people's emotions are landing on that side of the spectrum because the environment is conducive to it, right? more and more now in some countries, we hear hopeful news, right? And things getting better and numbers going down and economy starting to perhaps react to whatever. So we have more conduciveness into the happy side, but a crisis mode always lands people in automatic into the non-pleasant aspect of the spectrum. So if we are, as a society, to just let go with the flow of the environment's current, we will land on this part of the spectrum because it is not fun. It does not conduce to feeling well. You're threatened, you're being laid off, losing your livelihood, businesses are closing, health threat, like family interaction 24/7. You may love your family, but we're not designed for 24/7 interaction. Is not what we know. It's a challenge, right? So, and this is a very important aspect because this demands awareness. When you become present and you say, hey, and here is like cue emotional intelligence, when we become aware and say, hey, this is what's happening. Of course, like the whole environment is conducive to this. But if I step up and say what's happening, then I can modulate my response. But assuming that you don't do that, because we don't do that automatically, when we don't do that, we tend to go more into a herd response. And do you remember when this started, that people started buying toilet paper like crazy? Like, I remember going to the supermarket and taking pictures of the aisle. It was empty. It was like zombie land. It was really freaky. And that is called herd mentality. Imagine that you are at a mall or Eden Center or just a street or whatever, and you see 300 human beings running to your right. Like, you really don't wonder, hey, like, do you think they have a good reason for running? Should I run with them? You don't, like, you run because you assume there's a threat. And as so many people are doing it, you do it. Well, same thing happened with toilet paper, right?
And I think it's also linked with survival mode, because
it is
we always
definitely linked with
forget that
survival mode.
we are animals.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, definitely, that's completely true. And thank you for that, because herd response or herd instinct is not something that is rational. It's completely animal, right? It's safety in masses. We do it. We are wired that way. And when that happens, our rational mind isn't always available for us to say, hey, I'm gonna stop for a minute and say, is it smart enough or is it not? Which tends to lead to a lot of mental health issues in the current climate, right? Because not everyone has tools handy or awareness, or it is just a struggle, to be honest. It's a struggle. It is hard. So being able to notice that, and well, first of all, to know that you have an inner resource that's called emotional intelligence. That is, it's in you. We all have it. It's an ability that you can develop over time with practice. And it consists of two simple things: knowing where you are, right? Like having awareness of where your emotions land, and knowing how to respond. Like, is my response conducive to where I want to go? Awareness and self-management, it's a complete deal changer. I'm going to get more into how we can build it, because there are some tools, and there are 1,000 tools, but I just like selected some that help us develop muscle. Right? It's like, yeah, help you develop muscle. Like there's this metaphor, which is actually true for musicians, right? That say that musicians that play music are good, but musicians that play scale and like they play scales, they are prodigies because they know technique and method. They have muscle. So when the real thing comes, they know how to respond. Same thing, but with emotions. So I'm going to transition into some tools. So this is a great moment for questions in case someone has any questions.
Perfect. I have a question.
Yes.
When talking about awareness and being aware of where you are on that sort of scale in terms of how you feel, how important is it to know what it is that's making you feel that way? Like, how important is it to identify a source? Because I feel like with a lot of, especially in this sort of uncertain time, a lot of things are happening slowly maybe, or it's not like one thing that's like, oh, that made me mad, or oh, that made me anxious. It's more just like an ambiance that slowly is building over time, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint what exactly the source is.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's really important, because if you know where it's coming from, then you know how to shift your perspective towards it. Nonetheless, being able to know what you're feeling supports finding where it comes from, because you can more easily track what it resonates with, right? So for example, if I'm feeling, like there's this wheel that segments good and bad, and then it spreads into the thousands of options of what good and bad feels like. But if you can pinpoint, I felt deceived. This is what I'm feeling, right? I'm feeling deception. Then I can actually notice what in my surrounding produced that. So yes, it is important.
And I think also it's important to recognize that we have a lot of bias with our feelings, because sometimes we think that when we are disappointed, or we feel kind of, yeah, it's kind of disappointing or sad, we talk about this emotion as I am angry, because we learned since we were very little that when we were angry, like when we were feeling sad, we started to do like react as we were angry, and our moms were telling us stop being angry, or they even call it like childish behavior, acting as a child, but the child is acting on that way because he cannot express their emotions.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
yeah.
That's true. We do have some limiting beliefs, and some cultures forbid certain emotions. Where I come from, if you're a man, you don't cry, right? Well, surprise, surprise, I cry a lot. Or if you're a girl, then like you're very feminine and sensible. You don't get angry, right? That's not what we do. And those biases and limitations restrict our expression and therefore our awareness. So yeah, that is true. Cool. Any more questions? No?
No.
Got it. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead. Okay, so first tool to build emotional intelligence is, I call it leaning in. Leaning in is the exact opposite of resisting. Things are happening, just like you need to embrace reality. It is already happening. The amount of energy that we spend denying what's in front of us, it's mind-blowing, and it's really counterproductive, because there's a quote on your screen that I love, that is like, denying what's real is like becoming an ostrich and burying your head in the ground to keep out of danger. And you can actually think about what happens to an ostrich that does that when running from a lion. Like, not a very good outcome. Denial doesn't really work. Nonetheless, it has a reason for it. It's a psychological trigger. We respond to it because we fear that we can control, or we don't have the tool or ability to handle reality. But there's a very quick trick that can snap you out of denial. We deny out of fear, but we confuse fear with risk, and they are very, very different. Risk is real. Risk is mathematics, it's probability, it's chance. Big or like high or low, who knows? Fear is in your head. It's based on your past experiences, and it's based on your catastrophic scenario. We all do that. It's a survival mechanism. It works, but it's different than risk. So we deny because we are afraid. But when we can actually assess, like, hey, what's the risk of this happening versus how afraid I am, is completely different. Completely different. We suffer more in our minds than in reality. That's a fact. And this other thing that can really snap us out of denying and just like facing reality and being in touch with what's happening is knowing that that you accept something does not mean that you have to settle forever with it. I can accept that in the moment I am unequipped for this. But if I accept it, I embrace it, then I can actually grow from it and learn. If I deny myself, if I deny reality that I am unequipped, I will always pretend that I am equipped and keep failing. Just an example. So that is tool number one. Lean in, like get in touch with reality, embrace it. It's happening. It's already here. You don't have to like it, but it is here. Tool number two. This one builds on tool number one, and it's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. And it's called Tyranny Statements, right? This is a bit entangled, so I'm gonna try to be methodical. I promise I'll be as swift as possible. So Tyranny Statements. For you to reach clarity, we need to be able to differentiate clarity and certainty. We love our certainty. Certainty is a fancy way of calling expectations. We all have those, right? But certainty is something that we cannot have about the future. We can only have it about the past and about the present. I am certain that I woke up today. I am certain that I'm wearing pants. I am not certain of what's going to happen tomorrow. I really am not. Certainty is something that we look for because it's fear-based. There's a sense of fear. Like I want to control what's going to happen. I want this to happen because I don't want the opposite to happen. It is not wrong. We all do it. Just useless. And if you think about it, when you are reaching for certainty, we are always looking at the exterior. This to happen. The restaurant, well, of course, that applies to me because my partner has a restaurant. So the restaurant industry opening up soon, travel opening up soon, the economy coming back, whatever. Focus is external. Nothing is internal. Versus clarity, which is completely different. Clarity is a point of view, and it's a stance, and it's available in the past, in the present, and in the future. I may not be certain of what's going to happen tomorrow, but I am very clear of how I intend to respond to what life throws at me. It's a point of view. It is based in my willingness to be aware and present of what's happening. And it actually leverages my control over the only two things that I can control, which is what I pay attention to and how I act. Attention and action are the two things that we have control over, period. All the focus is internal, right? So not to say that what happens in the environment is not important, of course it is, but if I focus on the way that I am going to respond in this and this and this scenario, given the reality that I'm already seeing, right? Tool number one, then I can set my intention clear, and I can respond to the environment instead of fighting with it. So certainty, unavailable. Clarity, very available. Certainty focuses on the outside. It's my expectation. It's fear-based. It's something that I want to control. Clarity, it's a viewpoint. It's a stance. It leverages my awareness, my action, and my focus. And it's completely about my internal response. Right? Cool. Having said that, do you want me to back up?
No, no, no.
I just got your phone. Cool.
One that I wrote on a sticky note from the last time.
This one?
Yeah.
This quote, for me, is the perfect example of clarity versus certainty. And it says, a bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is not on branch, but on its own wings. So if you separate it, you can, you can look at it this way. Certainty, which is sought out externally, it's the bird expecting and praying and fingers crossed the branch won't break, right? It is completely out of your reach. Clarity is trusting its wings. Like he, she, it, they have all the the power, like in how they respond. So this is the main difference. Now that we say this,
I wanted to share something. I'm sorry.
Share.
I painted this a couple of some weeks ago.
Is that the quote?
It has a quote. It has a quote in Spanish, but I can translate it. So in Spanish it says, los llevamos al borde del abismo y les ordenamos que volaran, pero ellos no se movieron. Los empujamos hacia el abismo y entonces volaron.
Yeah.
So the translation is, and it's talking about what you are saying. Like we feel very stressed about what's happening, and sometimes we cannot react, we cannot act. But it's about us trusting ourselves. So it says, we took them to the border of the abyss. Pedro, help me out.
We took them to the border and their abyss and ordered them to fly, but they didn't. And then we pushed them.
They didn't move.
Oh, they didn't move. And then they pushed them to the abyss, and they did.
And they did fly. Yeah. And it's talking about how afraid we are, and that sometimes the universe, the situations around us are pushing us to trust our wings and just fly.
Yeah. And I don't know what the experience of everyone is around the COVID pandemic, and everyone's having a different experience. But my experience is that I stopped having a choice about many things. So I was forced to trust myself. And at times that happens. When you don't have a choice, the only choice you have is to do. And it works sometimes. Thank you for that, Erica. Anyhow, having said all my clarity, certainty thing, there's a mind trick that is really cool, and is if you give, and it's giving your brain direction, right? So this is called if-then affirmations. And if you want to nerd out on this, do YouTube or Google Mel Robbins if-then affirmations. She is one of my favorite authors. She's a complete badass, and she elaborates on why and how to do if-then affirmations. She doesn't elaborate on clarity versus certainty, but she dominates if-then affirmations. What this does is there is research showing how when you identify a trigger and give your brain a direction, you anchor as a response, and it is way easier for your brain to respond that way once it knows the way. So, for example, if this happens, then I will respond like this. So if I am financially pressured, then I will respond like this. How will I respond? Right? I don't know. In my case, if I feel financially pressured, I will reduce X expenses and search different income streams. If I feel frustrated, because I know that I feel frustrated because I've already been practicing tool number 1. I have embraced my frustration. Reality is happening. If I feel frustrated, I will reach out to my safety network, which is a completely different topic. You need to build a safety network. That is a different thing, but it's very important. So if I overworry, I will take a break and do whatever. Build this if-then structures. They really work. Search what's most likely to happen, or what happens in your day. And so if this happens, and then how do you want to respond, right? I saw a meme the other day that says, I'm not hungry, I'm just bored. Honestly, it's true. So I've already done this. Like, if I have to go to the kitchen, I will pour myself a glass of water, because I find that I open the freaking fridge every time I go. And like, grab my pants. Like, my pregnancy pants are not in my house. So honestly, so like, if I go to the kitchen, I will pour myself a glass of water. It's my if-then. It works.
I need to borrow that from you, Pedro, because I
So this kind of thing, and you can translate it into whatever's important for you, right? If I get frustrated, if I get bored, if I get anxious, if I get angry, if whatever, then like, plan ahead. Give your brain a where to go. So this.
A question: would you then recommend to have a look in what is right now, where is our attention at right now, and then make a list, and then trying to build this?
Yeah, of course, that really works. Right? And that is a bit like, if you go back to tool number 1, and like, you embrace reality, part of it is knowing what's happening. Like, this is what's happening in my life, right? This is my reality. I have a husband who is anxiously waiting to open a restaurant, right? That anxiety impacts me because I care about him. My clients are having these struggles. I am having to wake up very early because I have clients in Australia. Things like, this is happening. It is happening. Like it? Maybe not, but it is happening. With that, then I can build this. When this happens, when I feel like this, that I know I'm going to feel because I know how my day goes, this is how I will respond. It's a way better tool than saying, God, please let the restaurant industry open tomorrow safely and greatly, right? Hopefully, yes, but who knows if it'll happen. So
almost like a personal roadmap to help.
It is definitely a personal roadmap. It is definitely a personal roadmap, and it helps to give your brain direction, right? Which segues beautifully. Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Adriana, because that was a great segue to tool number 3. Tool number 3 is one of, I know that they're all my favorite, but this is adamant. This is really important. And I call it mental rehearsal, but you can call it whatever you want. You can call it visualization, meditation, whatever. There are 2 reasons why this is important, that you actually understand it, know it, and do it. Your brain reacts in the exact same way, and it ignites the same neural pathways when you live something in real life than when you imagine it. So you can, like your wedding day, or if you were being chased by a lion, or if those are equivalent, feel in a certain way, and they connect certain things, certain patterns in your brain. When you imagine them, the intensity may change, but the neural pathways are the same. Yes? That is point number one. Point number two, this happens whether you want it or not. Your brain practices scenarios for better or worse, and it reenacts the same thing neurobiologically, the same things that were being fired as it happened. So if I am imagining catastrophic scenarios, then I am reinforcing thoughts and feelings and experiences and choices that are aligned to this. But if I am envisioning and rehearsing and bringing more positive scenarios, if I'm rehearsing a better reality, of course, reality, right? Then my thoughts and feelings and choices and actions are going to be way more aligned toward this part of the spectrum. And again, this is not an invitation to imagine a fantasy and do not touch reality. This is why the most important part of this conversation is clarity, right? It's not about what happens outside, it's about how I respond. So if I can mentally rehearse the way that I want to respond, then it's a complete game changer. And your brain rehearses whether you want it or not. So if you do it willingly, you have the opportunity to have awareness and to create something with it. But when the environment is conducive to crisis like now, and it instinctively does it, then it is more prone to go to fear, because we all have a fear component today. We all do, right? So that's that. There are 1,000 ways to do this. You can mentally rehearse in your own form or shape. I have a very single one that I'm going to share with you that is simple, easy. It's a recipe and it works. It has 5 simple steps, and it is really, really cool. And it leverages on the other tools that I mentioned, right? I hope this is not too confusing, but if it is, please let me know and I'll clarify. So I call it the golden egg because it's the name of a meditation that I learned years ago. And it has 5 simple steps. Number 1, surprise, surprise, right? Tool number 1, acknowledge, touch base with your reality. What is the issue, right? What is it that I'm putting energy in that is taking from my peace of mind? I'm gonna use my restaurant example, which is by now I'm used to using this example, so I know it by heart. So the restaurant is paused, right? And that is complicated. That is my issue. That has some of my energy, right? Step number 2. When we are feeling and experiencing things, we feel them and experience them within, because our body is a vehicle of experience. If you can actually imagine them outside, if you can dissociate yourself from them, you can immediately understand that it's happening, but it's not always happening to you. It's happening, but it's not within you. And if you can just put that in perspective, then there's a sense of relief, right? And then we can use that image as a tool, right? This is why I call it the golden egg, because in this visualization that I learned, they told you like dissociate from it and wrap this in a golden egg so that you know it's there, but you don't have to look at it. So do that. And then step number 3, which is super simple, connect to a source of strength. What does this mean? Is like reconnect to what makes you happy and better, and like God knows what it is for you. Like for me is the universe, love, my ancestors, we're all immigrants, and that connecting to that gives me power and it makes me feel supported and grounded. Look for whatever it is that makes you feel grounded and supported and connect with that. Reach for whatever makes you strong. Step number 4, you need to recover the energy. And when I say energy, I almost always mean attention. Recover the attention that you invested in fueling this aspect of your life. How does this look like? If I could count the number of seconds that I have invested thinking in what's going to happen to that restaurant, I could have some wrinkles out of my face, like I'm pretty sure that has taken a toll on me. And that is attention that I'm putting to something that I have no idea what's going to happen. So if I actually repeat the steps and I identify the issue and I dissociate from it and I cover in a golden egg just for visual purposes, I connect to my ancestors or to God or whatever it is that makes you strong. And I look at this and I recover my attention. How do you do this? The way you do everything else. You use your words. You tell this, hey, like, you're real. I'm giving you a lot of my attention. Like, I'm giving you my energy. I am giving you life. And I want it back. And in my mind, this looks like this, like exploding into light and that light coming back to me. And there's dissolving. And I'm going to make a parenthesis into why that works. Your mind works through symbols. So you envisioning that coming back to you actually supports you like unanchoring your attention and bringing it back to you. Step number 5 is the most important thing, because a habit is not broken and then just broken. It's broken and then you need to reattach something that works. So now that you recover this energy, if you think about where can I put this attention that is actually conducive to something that I want, that better serves me? How can I put this into action that is actually positive for me? So in my case, I think, what other business models can I inquire in relation to the food industry that may better serve us while we can keep going? Can I inquire takeout and delivery, packaging? Like, we have a huge vegan, we're both vegan, we have a huge vegan network. We are lovers of the eco-friendly community. Could we reach out and change our business model? Like, I don't know, I'm just like thinking out loud, but all like putting my energy and attention to thinking of alternatives, it's way better spent than me obsessing over why is this not opening sooner? Mm-hmm. And the way that I feel is better, right? If you summarize and distill all that I've just said, doing these 3 things constantly becomes a habit. And that builds muscle of 2 simple things: being aware and being able to respond the way that you want, which are the 2 legs of emotional intelligence. And when the world is conducive to crisis, having that muscle is a complete game changer. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to say.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I have to go back through everything and write it all down. It's a lot of information, but it's a lot of very useful information. And I feel like so many things in our life, if we start with acknowledging them and then we end up with action, it's a pretty good path. But I really love this. Sorry, I'm taking up all this space. I don't know if anyone else has questions for Pedro.
Oh, I just wanted to say the last thing that you talked about, the golden egg, sort of like that 5-step process.
Yeah.
That's a really cool, like, don't know, guided meditation, I guess. It's like a process of running your energy that basically is doing those same things. So I thought that was interesting. Uses different words. It's generally like the same process of acknowledging and then like letting it go and then filling yourself up with something that you want to actually put your energy towards.
I love it when that happens because, I mean, we honestly are reinventing things that have been invented for millions of years, right? Because we are the same being and it works the same way. We're just like finding new words for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, that is one of the few ways of leveraging your emotional intelligence. And as you can see, I'm a very huge enthusiast of this topic. So yeah, I don't know if you have any questions, or yeah.
Well, I have a huge thanks to you, Pedro, because it was very lovely, everything you share with us. And I also think that you are a very resilient human. And
Thank
it's
you.
a very beautiful thing from you to share with us a little bit of your techniques and strategies. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Erica.
No, and they're, like I said, very helpful. The first time I ever heard you talk about emotional intelligence, I was sitting there with little sticky notes and writing down, and I ended up putting together this kind of triangle of tips, things to kind of look at on a daily basis as a reminder of just how to become more aware of my emotions. So thank you for that. And speaking, I know Erica was like, you are fantastic, but we want to know more about you. So let's learn a little bit more about fantastic Pedro. Don't think you're getting off easy. Okay, so
okay, let me sit up straight.
I'm going to
Let me get ready.
You're going to get ready? Okay, let me know when you are all set. And we will start. How is everyone else doing?
Excited.
Excited for the lightning round? It's my favorite part. All right, are you ready?
Stop sharing the screen.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Here we go.
Okay, got it.
Yes?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
And we are set. Okay. Here we go. Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
NSYNC for sure.
Netflix or Crave?
Ooh. Netflix.
Cake or pie?
Always cake.
Dancing or singing?
Singing. I suck at both.
So, no. I highly doubt. Actually, no, I've seen you dance. You are absolutely right. Party or small gathering?
A big party.
Pancakes or waffles?
Oh, pancakes.
You never leave home without?
My phone?
Ooh, good one. At a movie, candy or popcorn?
Candy.
And your favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh my God.
Is that a really hard one?
That's a very, very hard one. I'm gonna bundle it up. Bloomers, donuts, and olive press pizza from Mama's Pizza.
I've never had Bloomers. Where is this? Is it in Toronto?
Yes, it's Queen and Ossington.
Yo, I'm ordering donuts, guys. What? You could order.
That sounds amazing.
You can order donuts.
Yeah.
You ordered the
both
donut?
together. No, you go pick it.
Oh. That's fantastic. Okay, well, that is it for our lightning round. But I do want to remind everyone that we also do a giveaway on every episode. We do a lovely handwritten note with some seed paper, which consists of herbs and wildflowers. So if you have learned anything incredible, which I'm sure you have, about emotional intelligence from Pedro today, or have anything that you'd like to share in your socials, please tag me. I am at Collective Impact Journey for your chance to win. And I'm just going to ask if we had any more questions on YouTube or anything before we finish up here. Just want to make sure nothing gets missed.
Nope, all good.
No, we're all good. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of We-Solation. And thank you, Pedro, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.